Hey everybody, it's Trevor here, and I've got another market update video for you. And this time we're going to be looking at 6 of the cities just outside of Edmonton, or the suburbs of Edmonton. We're not going to get every place, but if you're looking at either Leduc, Beaumont, Spruce Grove, Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, or St. Albert, then you're going to want to tune into this video. You can basically check along the bottom and click on different chapters if you're just interested in certain cities, or you can just tune in and find out what's going on in all 6 of these suburbs. So we will jump right into that. Starting with Leduc first, we're using the most recent statistics available from the Realtors Association of Edmonton. So that's basically looking at everything that happened in the month of April, just looking at that last month. So we'll start off looking at the market as a whole. So that's the total residential. And just to remind you, there's a link in the description. You can download a copy of this report or a copy of any of the reports for any of these cities just outside of Edmonton. So the average price in Leduc in April was $409,909, which was down 2.88% from last month in March, but up 13.53% from April 2021. I wouldn't pay too much attention to the average price since it is a smaller market. It can be swayed quite easily by more expensive homes selling or cheaper homes selling, or even just having a few more condos selling or no condos selling can start to skew the price a little bit. So that's why there's so much up and down on the average price. The trend though, if you look at it on a yearly basis, is a little bit more stable. You can see the prices were up 4.2% in 2020, then they were up 5.12% in 2021, and so far we're up just over 10% for 2022. So we had big gains, especially in February and then in March. Now, if we look at the average price trend compared to Edmonton, you can see that it's kind of on par with Edmonton, although we did get bigger gains in 2020 than what happened in Edmonton, a little bit less than in 2021. And so far, it looks like almost double from what you see in 2022. So now if we look at the active and sold listings, you can see it was still a very busy market in Leduc with 105 active listings at the end of the month and 105 sales. The amount of inventory was up 43.84% from March 2022, but down 45% from April of 2021. And the sales was actually down a little bit from March 2022, but still up just over 20% from April of 2021. This isn't as big of a shift as what I saw in the Edmonton report. You can actually click up to the right and watch my most recent Edmonton report video, but we're still seeing a bit of a shift here. What's interesting is that we had less sales in April than we did in March, even though we had more listings. So if you look over here on the right, this is the 13-month history. And basically that green bar or the gap that it's represented by the green area, that shows you the gap between the number of active listings and the number of properties that are selling. And you can see that that gap completely closed in February, March, and it's still completely closed in April. And that's just because there's actually more sales happening in the course of a month than the number of active properties at the end of the month. So we have over 100% absorption rate. But what's interesting is you would expect there to be more sales in April than there was in March, because you get further into the spring market, and especially since there was more inventory with 105 active listings versus only 73, you would have thought that would give you an opportunity to actually sell more houses, but instead we sold a few less. So what's going on? Well, I do think it definitely has to do with the interest rates going up quite substantially and quickly, especially in the fixed interest rates. And the variable rate's been going up and it's going to continue to go up. So the market is showing that it is sensitive to that. Again, not seeing as much of a difference here in Leduc as what we saw in Edmonton, but that's definitely something you're going to want to look out for. If you're in the market to buy a home in Leduc, a lot of people, well, in Leduc or anywhere around Edmonton essentially, some people are starting to wonder if they should wait and see what happens with the market or if they should buy now. The big things that you're going to want to consider is, even if the market does go down later, which nobody can say for sure, if the interest rates are higher, would it have actually been worth it for you to wait and then pay a higher interest rate? You might be surprised to find out that the market would actually have to drop quite substantially in order for your mortgage payment to be the same with a smaller purchase price at a higher interest rate. So there's some math that you can do to look into that. And if you want my help with that, you can reach out to me. You can reach me at 780-819-5508. You can either text me or call me or email me at trevor@trevortardif.com, or go to booktrevornow.com. Select a time on my calendar and then I will call you. And yeah, you can do that regardless of whether you're looking in one of these 6 suburban cities or if you're looking in Edmonton, directly in Edmonton. Okay, so let's keep going here. You can see the absorption rate was sitting at 100%, which is very hot. And you can see it's been over 100% in February and March, and now April's sitting right at 100%. So it's actually less. I think last month it was at 150%. So it has cooled a little bit. April was not quite as insane as February and March. The average days on market was sitting at 35 days. Last month it was at 30, so it crept up a little bit here in Leduc compared to last month. And last April it was at 31, so it's not quite as crazy in terms of how quickly stuff is selling on average. Okay, now if we'll just take a quick look at the single family. The average price of single family home in April was $428,675. That's up 8.9% for the year so far, compared to Edmonton's 7.37%. Now, if we look at actives and solds again, you can see that we still had 81 active at the end of the month, which is up almost 40% from last month, but down 49% from last year. And then the sales is also down a little bit for single family homes compared to last month, but still up for last year. So still have very good levels of activity. It's just slowed down a little bit. And you can see the absorption rate for single family homes is over 100%, so it's still quite tight, very tight at 117% listing absorption rate. So there's not really much room to take a breather in this market. We're also sitting at 35 days on average for single family homes. If we just jump over to condos, the average price in April was $231,630, and that's up 14.3% so far for the year. Again, take those numbers with a grain of salt. There's not a lot of condos that sell in Leduc, so it's going to be specific to what type of condo, and you should probably reach out to me if you want a little bit more specific guidance on that. And yeah, so far compared to Edmonton, it looks like condos are doing amazing in Leduc, but there's just not enough sales volume for you really to take those statistics seriously. So as you can see, there was 24 active condos on the market at the end of April, and there was 10 sales. So there is actually some space here between the number of actives and sales. So it's much different if you're buying a condo compared to a single family home, sitting at a 41.67% listing absorption rate, which did drop a little bit from March. But it's still up from last year. So, and the average condo was on the market for 40 days. Okay, so that's it for Leduc. Let's hop on to the next one. And for the next one, we're gonna do Spruce Grove. So again, looking at the same most recent statistics, which is the month of April. In Spruce Grove, at the total residential price, the average price was $425,313. Which is up 2.93% from last month. And you can see that that was also significantly higher than what it was last year. It's up 7.82% from last year. The average price so far in 2022 is up 10.19% in Spruce Grove. And if you compare that to Edmonton, it looks like it's doing fantastic. Now, if you go and look over at active and sold listings, there was 123 active listings in Spruce Grove at the end of the month and 112 sales. So again, we have more inventory than we did last month. We're up 26.8%, but we're down still 39% from last year. And then our sales again are down a little bit from last month, which is again that very interesting piece of information, down 14.5% from last month and down 13.85% from last year. So you can see we see a little bit of green here, looking at the balance between the number of actives and solds. We're not getting back to where we were last year, but it has dropped a little bit. So a little bit of the insanity has been taken out of the market, and more than likely because of interest rates going up a little bit, not quite as much buyer demand. So that's puts us at a 91.06% listing absorption rate on the right. Again, that balance of the market, it's still a seller's market for sure. And we're sitting at 29 days on average, which was down 1 day from last month and down significantly from last year when we were at 41 days in April. So stuff's still moving pretty quickly in Spruce Grove as a whole. Let's take a quick look at the single family. Just to remind you, a link in the description, you can download a copy of this report. And if you'd like to get more specific advice on what you should do if you're looking to buy or sell in Spruce Grove, you can reach out to me. My information here is below. Either text, email me, or go to booktrevornow.com. Okay, so the average price for single family homes in Spruce Grove was $452,957, which was up 4.94% from last month and up 12.5% from last year. And you can see that so far we're up 11.35% in 2022. And that's doing a little bit better than Edmonton on an average price perspective. Now looking at the actives and solds in Spruce Grove, there were 74 active listings at the end of the month for single family homes and 95 sales. So the actives are up almost 30% from last month, but still down 51% from last year. and this number of sales is down 18% from last month and down 22% from last year. You can still see though that we have a very high absorption rate, so there's no green space, there's no breathing room in this market since we're selling houses at a rate faster than they are available on a monthly basis, since we are sitting at 128% listing absorption rate for single family homes. Now that's 25 days average on market, which did drop a few days from last month, and it's down significantly from last year when we were at 41 days on market. So it's still quite hot in Spruce Grove, especially for single family homes. Now, if we look over at condos, the average price in April was $270,835, and that was up a little bit from last month and up a little bit from last year. Take those numbers with a grain of salt. There's very few condos that sell in Spruce Grove. So far in 2022, the prices are up 6.55% on average for condos, and there was 49 active listings at the end of the month and 17 sales. So you can see there's a lot more breathing room here in the market. That green space representing the gap between the number of sales and the number of active listings. We're sitting at a 34.69% listing absorption rate, which is a lot more balanced, slightly more on the buyer side, but it's not hot like it is for single family homes. And that's kind of the case with condos across the board, whether you're in Edmonton or any of these surrounding cities. The average days on market for condos was 54 days, which was actually up 6 days from last March and up a couple days from last year. That's it for Spruce Grove. Now let's go to the next market. We're gonna look at St. Albert next. The average price for the whole market in St. Albert in April was $473,922, which is down 1.85% from last month, but up 4.32% from last year. And so far, the market's up 6.56% in 2022 in St. Albert. And if you compare that to Edmonton, it's doing a little bit better than Edmonton this year, and it also did last year as well. Now, if we look at the number of active and sold listings in St. Albert, you can see we had 179 active listings at the end of the month with 160 sales in April. So the actives are up 46% from last month and down 44% from last year. And the sales are down just a little bit from last month, down 1.23% and down 19.6% from last year. So we got a little bit more breathing room here. You can see a little bit of green, but it's still quite hot as a whole in St. Albert in April. Now, if we look at the absorption rate, that puts us at an 89.39% absorption rate, which is strong seller's market territory. Like I said, we added a tiny bit of breathing room, but not much. And if you compare that to last year, it's still significantly hotter than it was last year, even though it did ease off just a little bit in April. Average days on market was sitting at 23 days, and that's down a few days from March when we were at 26, and down 9 days from last April when we were sitting at 32 days average on market. Now, if we look at the single family home, the average price for single family homes sold in St. Albert in April was $539,266, which was down 1.65% from March and up 9.57% from April of last year. So far, single family homes are up 10.24% on average in St. Albert, and there was 98 active single family homes on the market at the end of April, and there had been 118 sales. So the number of active listings is up 96% from March, but down 44% from last April. And the number of sales is still down a little bit from March, even though we had way more listings, and it is down 27% from last April. So that's also very interesting. We went from having 50 active listings at the end of March, and we had 120 sales, and at the end of April we had almost double the number of listings, and we were down a couple sales. So definitely something going on there. Some of that demand has been taken away, but there's still like no breathing room in this market. There's over 100% absorption rate, sitting at 120% absorption, so that's still going to put upward pressure on prices until the balance changes. We were sitting at 17 days on market on average, which is down from 23 days in March and down significantly from 28 days last April. If we just quickly look over at condos in St. Albert, the average price was $290,336, which is down 1.85% from March and up 2.65% from April of last year. So far, it looks like on average the prices for condos are down this year, but again, there's just not enough sales to take that number seriously, so we'll skip past that. You can see that there's 81 active listings at the end of the month and 42 sales. And if you compare that over the last 13 months, you can see there used to be a lot of gap here between the number of sales and actives. Like in April 2021, there was 36 sales and 143 actives. Now we're sitting at 81 actives, so a lot less inventory, and we got a bit more sales, which closes that gap a lot and makes it a lot more balanced. That put us at a 51% listing absorption rate, which is balanced, but kind of moving into that seller's market territory for condos. That's one of the only markets I've seen that for condos. again, it's going to depend on your exact situation if you're looking at buying or selling a condo. So don't just take that at face value. I'd recommend reaching out to me. You can see my contact information here below. Text, email me, or go to booktrevornow.com, and we can talk further about your plans in St. Albert. The average days on market was sitting at 41 days for condos, which was up from 36 days last month, but down 6 from last April. Okay, so that's it for St. Albert. You can get a copy of that report. There's a link in the description. You can download this report and look at that a little bit closer. Okay, now we're going to take a look at Fort Saskatchewan. The average price for the market as a whole in Fort Saskatchewan was $427,373, which was down 2.24% from March 2022 and up 11.74% from April 2021. You can see that so far we're up 8.31% on average in 2022. And if we go and look at the number of active and sold listings in Fort Saskatchewan, there was 101 active listings at the end of April, and there had been 76 sales. So the number of active listings is up 44% from March, but down 40.59% from April of last year. And the number of sales is also down from March, down 26% from March and down 30% from April of last year. So we added a little bit more breathing room in Fort Saskatchewan as well. It was insane in February and March, and now we got a little bit more inventory and a few less sales, probably because of the increased interest rates. That's slowed down buyer demand a little bit, but don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of buyer demand, at least in April. Now, if we go and look at the absorption rate, we were sitting at a 75% absorption rate in April. That is down a little bit from last month when it was, over 100%. It was at 147%, so pretty big drop to see that balance of the market change like that. And that just happens from having a little bit more inventory and a little bit less sales. Those two things combined can start to really drop your absorption rate percentage, but that's definitely still seller's market territory. For average days on market, we were sitting at 31 days in April, which was down from 40 days in March, and down a little bit from last April when we were sitting at 35 days on market. Now, if we go and look at single family homes in Fort Saskatchewan, the average price in April was $450,820, which was down 1.51% from March and up 12.5% from April of last year. So far, single family homes in Fort Saskatchewan are up 9.2% in 2022. And you can see that at the end of the month, we had 67 active listings and we had 67 sales. So the number of active listings are up 59.52% from March and down 45% from April of 2021. And the number of sold single family homes are down 29% from March and down 32% from April of last year. So we basically had 100% absorption rate, so there's no breathing room in the market. That's still very hot seller's market territory, but it has improved a little bit. When like last month, we had 42 actives at the end of the month and we had 95 sales, and now we actually got less sales and we have more active. So there's a little bit more breathing room, but still not much, sitting at 100% absorption rate. It's cooled a little bit, but it needs to cool more for it to calm down a little bit. Now, the average days on market in April was 30 days. That's down from 38 days in March and down from 30 days last April. Going and looking at condos in Fort Saskatchewan, the average price was $252,822 in April, which is up so far 5.82% for the year. You can see there was 34 active listings at the end of the month and 9 sales. We had one more sale than we did last month, but we had a little bit more inventory. So you can see there's definitely a lot more breathing room in condos, and sitting at a 26% absorption rate, I would put that in buyer's market territory for condos in Fort Saskatchewan. So not at all the same scenario. There's not a ton of properties in that market for condos, so these can swing quite easily, these statistics. But as you can see, it's a much different story for condos in Fort Saskatchewan than it is for single family homes. The average days on market was sitting at 39 in April. It was 60 in March, and last April it was 55. There's so few sales. Each one that happens, if you have something that sits on there for 200 days, it's really gonna rack up that average days on market a lot. So I wouldn't, think about those numbers too closely. Okay, so that's it for Fort Saskatchewan. If you'd like to get more specific advice about Fort Saskatchewan, you can reach out to me. My information here is below, and we can hop on a call and I can help you out. Okay, now we're going to take a look at Sherwood Park. Just to remind you, you can get a copy of this report. There's a link in the description. The average price in Sherwood Park as a whole in April was $482,420, which was up 10.42% from March and up 12.77% from April. And you can see that so far in 2022, prices are up 3.51%. in Sherwood Park. And if we're going and looking at the number of active and sold listings, there was 146 active listings at the end of the month in April and 141 sales throughout the month. So the number of listings is up 53% from March and down 31% from April last year. And the number of sales are down 12%, almost 13% from March and down 21% from April of last year. So there's a little bit more breathing room in the market, having a few less sales and significantly more inventory. A few less sales and significantly more inventory does change the balance a little bit, but still very hot, sitting at a 96% listing absorption rate. Things are moving quickly in Sherwood Park. Average days on market in April was 20 days, which was down from 27 days in March and down from 26 days last April. Now, if we go and look at single family homes in Sherwood Park, the average price was $529,643, which was up 6.14% from March and up 13% from April of last year. So far, single family homes in Sherwood Park are up 7.99% in 2022, and the number of active listings is sitting at 78 at the end of the month with 113 single family home sales. So you can see that it's really tight for single family homes, way more sales than you have actives at the end of the month. Even though the number of active listings is up 81% from March, it's still down from last year, about 34%. But the sales are down 5.83% from last March and down 18.71% from April of 2021. So you can see it's been very hot in Sherwood Park for single family homes all of the last year. We had a little bit more breathing room in the month of July and September and October, and then that gap just closed where we've been selling more homes on a monthly basis than what we have for active inventory. So it's been very tight in Sherwood Park for quite some time now. The listing absorption rate sitting at 144%. Again, that's basically just showing you the same information in a percentage. Average days on market was 15 days, which was down a day. In March, we were at 16, and last April, we were at 19. So stuff is really moving quick in Sherwood Park for single family homes. Let's see how it compares in condos. So condos, the average price is $291,841, which is up 12.48% from last month and up 1.79% from last April. So far, the average prices look like they're down 5.53% for 2022. That's probably because there's barely any condos and a few cheap ones sell, and that starts to affect your averages. Now, if we look at actives and sold, there were 68 active at the end of the month and 28 sales. So a big shift in the market compared to last month when we had 42 sales and only 52 active on the market. And then this month we got a few more active sitting at 68, but then the sales dropped to 28. So I know that we're only talking about like 14 sales, but since it's a small market, that can really start to change the balance a little bit. And then the listing absorption rate was sitting at 41% in April, which I would say is it's more of a balanced market for condos, which was a big shift from last March where there was quite a bit of absorption there. The average days on market was sitting at 38 days compared to 58 last month and compared to 52 last April. Okay, so that's it for Sherwood Park. And now for our last Edmonton suburban city is Beaumont. And the average price in Beaumont in April was $507,437, which was down 13.66% from March 2022 and up 18.12% from April 2021. The trend for the year, so far prices are up 18% on average in 2022. And if we look at the number of active and sold listings, there was 77 active listings at the end of the month and 52 sales throughout the month. So the number of active listings are up 108% from March 2022 and down 8.33% from last year in April. And the number of sales are down just a little bit, 5.45% from March and down 22% from April 2021. So that we did see this market shift a little bit. We had a few less sales in April compared to March and quite a few more listings. So that gave us a little bit more breathing room here in Beaumont. But you could see it was very tight in February and March and even January. And it's kind of dropped back down to the balance of where we were at in January. So there's a bit of a shift going on there. We'll have to see how that continues. That brings us down to a listing absorption rate of 67%, which is still, seller's market territory. Gives you a little bit more breathing room there. Average days on market was sitting at 24 days compared to 27 days in March and comparing it to 32 days last April. Now, if we just look at single family homes in Beaumont, we were sitting at $528,350 for the average sales price in April, which is down 13.89% from last month and up 20.79% from April of 2021. The average price for single family homes is up 19.57% so far in 2022. And the number of active listings sitting at 72 active listings at the end of the month and 48 sales. Number of active listings are up a little bit, sitting at 111% more from last month, but down still a little bit from last year, 2.7% down. And the number of sales are down 5.8% from last month and down 25% from last year. So we did add a little bit more breathing room in the single family home market here as well. So that's the interesting story across the board in Edmonton. Most of the surrounding communities is that sales were actually down for April. So it could be the beginning of a bit of a market shift, probably mostly driven by changes in interest rates. Now that puts us at a listing absorption rate of 66.67%, and the average days on market was at 23 compared to 24 last month and compared to 23 last April. Now we'll just take a quick look at condos. The average price of a condo sold in Beaumont in April was $256,492, which is down just a little bit from last month and down 2.57% from April of last year. So far, condos are up 5.48% on average in 2022. And you can see there's hardly any condos in Beaumont, with 5 active and 4 sales. Just as many sales as we had last month, but we had a couple more listings. That puts us at an absorption rate of 80%, which is still seller's market territory. But there's so few properties available for condos and so few that sell that it's hard to even give these stats much weight. Average days on market was 39 days compared to 62 days last month and 17 days last year. Those are going to be all over the place just because there's so few sales in this market. And yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for the suburbs around Edmonton, or most of them at least. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to check out more market update videos, you can check out this playlist over here, and you can click here to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.